Okay, so email. It's everywhere, right? I mean, you can't really escape it.
It really is. The undisputed king of communication. Still.
Yeah. And it's not just for like work stuff either. I mean, you use it for keeping up with like family,
Yeah.
friends, all sorts of
Oh,
things.
definitely. Absolutely essential for just about everything.
And the thing is, like, it can be so easy to mess up. Like, I think we've all sent an email and then cringed afterward, like, oh man, why did I say it like
Oh,
that?
yeah. A misplaced comma here, the wrong tone there.
Yeah.
It can make a huge difference.
So today we're going to dive into this whole email thing, really try to understand, the difference between like professional emails and casual emails, when to use which one, how to actually write them effectively.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And we've got some really great resources to help us out with this. We've got these FAQs, which are super detailed, and a study guide on email etiquette that even has quizzes.
Quizzes.
Yep. And then we've got this really in-depth briefing document from Mastering the Art of the Inbox. They're like the email gurus.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, our mission today is to equip you, the listener, with the knowledge and the tools to write killer emails. Like, no matter the situation, you'll be able to craft a message that gets your point across and gets you the results you want.
Exactly.
Okay. So first things first, like, why does it even matter? Why do we need to like differentiate between professional and casual email styles? Isn't an email just an email?
Well, it's about creating the right impression. Think about it if you send a super casual email full of emojis to your CEO.
Oh my gosh.
It might not go over so well,
Yeah.
right?
No. Not a good look.
But then on the other hand, if you send a really formal, stiff email to a close friend about just grabbing coffee,
Yeah.
it's going to feel super weird and impersonal.
Right. So it's about avoiding those kind of awkward situations, those miscommunications. And, for you, our listener, it's about making sure you don't make those mistakes. Like, you want to sound confident and competent, right?
Yeah, and using the right style can really make a difference in how seriously it will take you. It can affect your relationships at work, your chances of landing a job, all sorts of things.
Okay, so let's start with professional emails. What makes an email professional?
I'd say the main thing is that it projects competence and respect. It's like your digital handshake.
Digital handshake. I like that.
So you're not just representing yourself, you're representing your company, your brand.
Okay, so when would you say professional emails are like absolutely necessary?
Definitely for any external communication. So that's
Oh,
like when you're emailing clients, potential partners, vendors, anyone outside your company, really.
got it.
It's also important for formal internal communications, like if you're sending out a company-wide announcement, a policy update, things like that, or if you're writing to senior management.
Okay.
Oh, and of course, job applications. You got to be professional there. And networking emails, too. Those first impressions are crucial.
Right. So let's break it down. Let's talk about the specific elements of a professional email, starting with the subject line.
Yeah, the subject line is super important because it's the first thing people see. It determines whether they even open your email or not.
It's like the gatekeeper.
Exactly. So it needs to be clear, concise, and specific. It should tell the recipient exactly what the email is about.
Okay, so what are some like do's and don'ts for writing a good professional subject line?
Okay, so do's. Definitely use keywords that are relevant to the email's content. That makes it easy for people to search for later. And if you're referring to a specific project, include the project name or reference number right there in the subject line. If it's urgent, you say urgent, but don't overuse it. And if you're following up on a previous conversation, mention that, like following up on our meeting, something like that.
Makes sense.
And for the don'ts, don't be vague. Don't just write hello or important.
Yeah, those are the worst.
Right. And keep it concise. No novels in the subject line. And please, no all caps, no excessive punctuation.
Like a million exclamation points.
Exactly. And no emojis. Save those for your friends.
Okay, so can you give us an example of like a good professional subject line versus a bad one?
Sure. So a good one would be something like Project Alpha Q3 Progress Report. Clear, concise, tells you exactly what to expect. A bad one would be something like hi or important. Check this out. Like, what is that even about?
Yeah, that screams spam.
Totally.
All right, so we've got the subject line down. What about the greeting, the salutation?
Right. So in a professional email, you always want to start with dear and then use the person's professional title and last name. So, dear Mr. Jones, dear Dr. Lee.
Yeah.
If you're on a first name basis, you can use dear with their first and last name.
Okay.
Now, if you don't know the person's name, you can use to whom it may concern. But it's always better to try and find a name, if you can.
Right.
And for job applications, if they don't list a name, you can use Dear Hiring Manager.
Got it. What about the things you should avoid in a professional salutation?
Oh, yeah. So definitely no casual greetings like hey or just hi with their first name, no nicknames, no terms of endearment. Even if you're friends with them outside of work, keep it professional. And always include a salutation. Don't just launch right into the email.
Right. And, make sure you spell their name right.
Oh my God, yes. Double, triple check that. You don't want to start off on the wrong foot.
All right, so we've got the subject line, we've got the salutation. Now let's talk about the body of the email. What are the key principles here?
So the most important thing is to be clear and concise. People are busy. They don't have time to read through a wall of text. So get straight to the point. Your opening sentence should clearly state the purpose of the email.
Okay.
And keep your language simple and straightforward. No jargon unless you're sure the recipient will understand it. And keep your tone professional. Avoid humor that might be misconstrued, and definitely no sarcasm.
So what are some specific do's and don'ts for the email body?
Okay, so dose. Start with a polite opening line like, I hope this email finds you well, or thank you for your time. Then clearly state the reason you're writing. Use bullet points or numbered lists to make your email easier to scan. Keep your paragraph short, like a couple of sentences max.
Okay.
Use professional vocabulary and always be polite. Say please and thank you. And if you need the recipient to take any action, be very clear about what you need them to do and when you need them to do it by.
Got it.
For don'ts, don't be too casual or abrupt in your opening. No, hey, what's up?
Right.
And don't ramble or go off topic. Stay focused. And again, no slang or jargon unless it's absolutely necessary and you know the recipient will get it. No all caps, no excessive exclamation points, and definitely no negativity or sarcasm.
Oh,
and proofread.
Yes. Proofreading is key.
It is.
Yeah.
And one more thing, think about the visual presentation. Use a professional font like Times New Roman or Arial, and avoid crazy colors or weird formatting. Keep it clean and simple.
Okay, what about wrapping up the email? How do you close a professional email?
So for the closing remark, you can use sincerely, which is the most formal, or regards or best regards, which are a little less formal.
Okay.
Respectfully is usually only used in very formal situations. If you're thanking the person for something, you can use thank you or thank you for your time and consideration. And if you're expecting a response, you can add looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay.
And then for the sign-off, always include your full name, your professional title, and your company name if it's relevant. And make sure your contact information is in your signature. Phone number, email address, the works.
And what are some things to avoid when closing a professional email?
Don't use casual closings like cheers or later. Don't use a nickname in your sign-off. And make sure your email signature is professional too. No silly quotes or distracting colors.
Yeah.
Oh, and be mindful of those default mobile signatures like sent from my iPhone. Sometimes those aren't very professional.
Right. Okay, so what about attachments and links? Any tips for handling those professionally?
Yeah, definitely. Always mention attachments in the body of the email, like say, please find attached, and use descriptive file names so the recipient knows what they're opening. Stick to common file formats like PDFs and Word docs.
Okay.
And if you have to send a large file, warn the recipient and consider compressing it. For links, always test them to make sure they work and explain what the recipient will find when they click on it.
And what are some don'ts for attachments and links?
Don't send large attachments without warning. No one wants to wait forever for a file to download. Don't use weird or obscure file formats. And never send executable files. Those can set off security alarms.
Right. Makes sense.
Oh, this might seem obvious, but make sure you actually attach the file. It's easy to forget.
Ugh, I've done that before.
Yeah.
So embarrassing. Okay, so we've covered professional emails pretty thoroughly. Let's switch gears and talk about casual emails. So when would you say a casual email is appropriate?
So casual emails are great for building relationships and fostering connection. It's more about a friendly, personal touch.
So like with colleagues,
Yeah.
friends and family.
Yeah, exactly. Close colleagues, especially if you're just sending a quick update or brainstorming ideas. Friends and family, obviously.
Yeah.
And even for networking, once you've built some rapport with someone, you can start to be a little more casual.
Okay, so let's talk about the specific elements of a casual email, starting with, you guessed it, the subject line.
All right, so with casual emails, you can be a lot more relaxed with the subject line. It can be short and sweet, even just a couple of words. And emojis are definitely okay here. Use them sparingly, but they can add some personality.
Right.
With close contacts, you can even use inside jokes or references. And for super short emails, like a one-word reply, you can skip the subject line altogether.
Okay.
Just make sure you're not being too vague if the email contains important info. And obviously, avoid anything offensive.
Got it. Can you give me some examples of good casual subject lines?
Sure. So you could say something like, quick question, or catching up, or even lunch tomorrow. You could also use emojis, like movie night X or something. Right.
What about bad casual subject lines? What should you avoid?
Avoid being overly formal, like formal inquiry regarding weekend plans. That's just weird.
Yeah, no one talks like that.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to the greeting.
Okay.
So for casual emails, you can use hi or hello
Yeah.
with the person's first name.
Okay.
If you're close with them, you can use hey. And with really good friends, you can even just use their first name, like Sarah, what's up?
Okay.
And like the subject line, you can sometimes skip the greeting altogether if it's a really short email. Just make sure you're not being overly formal. No, dear Mr. Smith, with your best friend.
Right. And be careful about nicknames.
Yes, only use a nickname if you know the person likes it and uses it themselves. You don't want to call someone Sparky if they hate it.
Okay, so how about the body of the email? What are the do's and don'ts for casual email writing?
So the main thing is to be yourself. Relax, be conversational, use contractions, everyday language, emojis, Don't overthink it, just make sure your message is clear. So for do's, start with a friendly opening, like, hope you're doing well, or how was your weekend, something like that.
Okay.
And then just write like you talk. Use emojis to convey your tone. You can share personal updates, ask about their life. You can even use humor and inside jokes.
Okay.
Casual emails can be a bit longer if you're catching up with someone. But try to keep it relatively concise. Now for the don'ts. Don't be too formal or stiff. This is not a business meeting. And don't use any offensive language. Even if you're joking around, be respectful. And don't overuse emojis or slang. You want your message to be clear, not confusing.
Yeah.
Oh, and be careful about sharing personal information that might be too sensitive for email.
Right. Okay, what about closing a casual email? Any tips for that?
Yeah, keep it casual. You can use closings like best, cheers, thanks, take care, talk soon, later, or just bye. You could also use a nickname if you're close with the person, and you can skip the closing remark altogether if it's a very short reply. But definitely don't use anything too formal like sincerely or your full name and title.
Got it. And what about attachments and links in casual emails?
It's pretty similar to professional emails, but you can be a bit more relaxed. You can mention attachments casually, like, here's that picture I was telling you about. Use descriptive but informal file names. And if you're sending a large file, compress it if you can. For links, just make sure they work and give the recipient some context. But don't be totally careless. Make sure the file format is something they can open and that the link isn't suspicious.
Okay, so we've talked about professional emails, we've talked about casual emails, but what about those situations where it's not so clear-cut?
Yeah, there's definitely a gray area. Sometimes it can be tough to know which style is appropriate.
So how do you decide?
Well, the most important thing is to think about your relationship with the recipient. How well do you know them? What's the context of the email? Is it work-related or personal? What's the company culture like? And what about the recipient's communication style? Do they tend to be more formal or informal in their emails?
So what if you're really not sure? What's the best way to play it?
When in doubt, err on the side of formality. It's better to be a little too formal than too casual, especially in a professional setting. You can always start off a bit more formal and then adjust your tone based on how they respond.
Okay, so pay attention to the cues.
Exactly. And if you're really not sure, don't be afraid to just ask. You can say something like, do you have a preferred communication style? That shows that you're considerate.
Good point. Okay, any final tips for really upping our email game?
Yes. Proofread everything, even casual emails. A typo can change the meaning of your message. Use email scheduling tools. It's a great way to make sure you're not sending emails at odd hours. And learn to manage your email threads effectively. Keep your replies concise and focused. Oh, and think about response time expectations. If something is really urgent, email might not be the best way to communicate. A phone call or text message might be better.
Okay.
And this might seem like a small thing, but it's important. Develop your own email voice. Be authentic, but professional. And remember that email is constantly evolving, so keep learning. There are lots of resources out there, grammar checkers, style guides, even online courses.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I've learned so much about writing effective emails.
Me too. It's really amazing how much of an impact the way you write can have on your personal and professional life.
So for you, the listener, our takeaway message is this. Be intentional with your email style choices. Think about who you're writing to, what you want to say, and how you want to come across. By making those conscious decisions, you can make sure your emails are not just read, but truly understood and appreciated. And that can make all the difference.
I completely agree.
All right, that's it for a deep dive on email etiquette. See you next time.